Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again. And we're going to talk now about Black Lightning, and for me what was a standout episode from the third season, the book of chapter 4, Markovia, Grab the Strap. I think that's the episode name there. And for me, the Black Lightning third season has without question been its strongest. It's been the most focused, it's been the most serialized. There's a real serious tone and direction and a measured approach to its storytelling. The way it's approaching its different arcs. I love the ASA storyline with the Markovian. There's lots of different depths to that story. It's taken the characters really in different directions. You know, we've seen the problems we've had with Jefferson and Lynn. Lynn's had the green light addiction. We've seen Jen expanding on her powers. We've seen Anissa struggling, if you like, to help out with the resistance and kind of been consumed, if you like, with her own status and her own power. Aldell has been a great main villain as well. And it culminated in this 13th episode of the series, and this was fantastic. We picked up the events where essentially Jefferson had to team up with the ASA because Lynn had been captured by the Markovians. They need her to work on a special serum. And it's kind of funny now because Black Lightning, just like Supergirl has the DEO and just like Flash has with Team Flash, it kind of has the Team Lightning now. We obviously have Jen, we have Anissa, we then eventually have Khalil, we have Gambi, of course, and we have Brandon, and we have TC and the agent as well, who was working with the ASA to begin with, and now he's with them. So he's and the other girl who had the special powers when she's busting the door open. So there's quite a lot in that team there. Now we don't know if they're gonna take that approach going forward for future episodes and maybe future seasons where Black Lightning has his own kind of group. I mean, you would have thought that Jefferson, Jen and Anissa were quite the force already, and especially with Gambi doing all the tech stuff behind the scenes. But they've kind of really expanded on that team dynamic, so that was really interesting to see. They did need the numbers, I suppose, to infiltrate the Markovian base, which was quite a stronghold, so that did make sense. But it'll be interesting if they carry on that team dynamic going forward. We also had GraveDigger, who came in and kind of overtook the Markovian operation under the president's orders. He had a special power or ability where he was able to kind of persuade people to do what he wanted. So even if Lynn didn't want to carry on working, he would force her to. So he impacted her that way. And Lynn had to work with Jace to kind of escape. She kind of takes this material or chemical which allowed her to temporarily be able to have the same powers as GraveDigger as such, and she got the main lead of the Markovians to help them escape that route. And what I loved about this episode was, again, the team dynamic we saw on the plane with the various characters all together. There was a great speech by Gambi, who is one of my favourite characters on the show, when he's telling Jefferson, you know, you're the real hero and I'm proud of you. And we all know that Gambi and Jefferson have that long history together. And what makes Gambi so special is that he is the anchor of the group. You know, you can have Jefferson, Lynn, Anissa and Jen. They're the ones who, you know, they are the main heroes, but they're the ones who make mistakes, they make the wrong choices, and Gambi is that one who can ground each character down and tell them where they're going wrong and where to put right, and they respect him because Gambi has that special relationship. And you always need that character. It's essentially like Alfred, what Alfred is to Batman, right? You need that character who is able to tell the hero where, you know, they basically messed up and they respect him as a character. So I think I love that scene between the two there. We did begin the episode where Jefferson was kind of making a video call and he was talking about, you know, what went on in the events. One thing I missed, and correct me in the comments, but Jefferson and Lynn have got divorced. I must have missed that. I don't know if that was part of the new timeline that went on when Jeff come back from the crisis, but I swear I must have missed that. I knew there was arguments between the two, and yes, this was following on from Lynn's green light addiction, but I didn't know that they had got divorced. I must have missed that part somewhere, but that was interesting as well. But we also had Tobias, and it's great. Again, this is where I value season 3 so much. It's the different directions that they've made the characters go through. As we all know, Tobias was the main antagonist in season 1 and 2. He was the kind of the kingpin style figure. He was the crime lord. He was the one that had all the criminal element under Freeland. And they've taken him in a different point here, where for the most of the season he's really been under hostage, and he's really been much more of a, well, I say victim in loose terms, but he's the one who's been tested on and worked on as such. It's funny how he still has his very cocky, very sort of racially abrasive attitude, you know, despite the fact that he's been in such a much more of an incapacitated position. And he knows that because they need Tobias's special tissue, because it will help stabilize the metas. So that was what was crucial. That's why they had to go to the base, as well as rescuing Lynn. The ASA also needed them to recover Tobias, because again, like I said, he's got the material to help with the metas who need reviving. So that was fantastic. I still love the Jace as well as the character. She, like Tobias, she's a bit weird, she's a bit crazy. She as well likes to sort of wind people up. It's almost as if she doesn't quite realise the danger that they're in, the kind of jeopardy that they're in. It's almost as if, you know, she's led this sort of really cornered, sheltered life, and this is like an excitement for her. So that's why she's always winding Lynn up and making these little jokes and remarks through and through. So she's a really good character. I wouldn't mind having her kept around. I'm not sure she could quite be another member of Team Lightning as such. I don't know what they plan for that character going forward, but I really like her in the role as well. But what I really liked about this episode as well was the fight sequences and the fight choreography. It was fantastic. You know, we saw Khalil and GraveDigger, this great choreography. We see Khalil some backflipping, and GraveDigger was doing all these roundhouse kicks, and it was a great fight on there. And just to comment on Khalil quickly as well, I'm still not sure why we need Khalil as round as much. We had the scene in the episode where he was willing to leave and set up a new life for himself, but then I guess the connection with Jen is still there, and he came back to rejoin the team. And it's kind of weird because this isn't really Khalil, is it? He's kind of a super soldier that was recreated, but he's kind of got the mental spirit of the original Khalil. It really doesn't make, to me, it doesn't really make much sense. It's kind of like, this is not the actual person of Khalil. They did explain it to an extent last episode, where they kind of went in his mind, they were reopening his consciousness or something like that. But I think as a character, he's pretty much done, really, and they keep killing him off, bringing him back, killing him off, bringing him back, and we get the whole love sort of story again with Jen. But it's almost like either keep him alive and keep him within the main team, or just have him leave. You know, it just kind of getting a bit repetitive, killing them off and bringing them back. And we had that with a couple of characters. We had that with Lady Eve, who's come back. Again, the same thing with Lala. You know, we kill them off, and then we don't see him for 5 or 6 episodes, and then he comes back. And he's kind of questioning, what's the relevance, really, of these characters? Why we keep kind of reinventing them and bringing them back all the time, repeating the same beats. They're no different characters when they come back, right? They're still the same. Khalil is still the same. Lala is still the same. Black Eve is still the same. So I don't know why we're bringing these characters back. It's not adding anything new, especially when you're expanding the whole team now with these new members of like the Team Lightning. So we'll see what happens with that going forward. But the fight choreography was fantastic. We saw that scene with Brandon when he encountered Jace, and we all know Jace was responsible, I believe, inadvertently or overtly, for killing his parents, I believe, or his mother. So Jace was going to kill her, and then the agent came down and struck him from behind. But the Gravedigger character was really good. I don't believe he's been in the series before. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he has. But yeah, he had a real kind of presence as a villain, and you could argue it was a bit of plot armor, the fact that he shot Black Lightning down, and why didn't he shoot him in the head? Why didn't he take him out? You know, why didn't he go for a kill shot? He kind of just kills him and leaves him on there. that was a bit plot armor, as we see later on when they get everybody on the plane and GraveDigger is there to stop them. Jefferson then comes back and strikes him with the lightning, and this kind of rekindles the kind of love between Lynn and Jefferson as they board back on the plane. So this was all great. I mean, like I said, there's a real kind of purpose this season, and I have enjoyed season 1 and 2, but my main issues were that there was too much focus on the whole race and the police brutality. And Luke Cage was like this as well, and after a while it comes across as a bit preachy, and with too much focus on the kind of political messaging, the sort of social justice messaging, and there wasn't enough focus on the fact that this is a superhero show where people have super abilities and they take on super villains. We were kind of drifting away from that a bit, especially more in the second season. But this third season, we've gone full on with the superhero stuff. We've dropped very much the racial subject matter. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that isn't important, but it can get a bit kind of repetitive, and we've seen that territory covered many times, and I think it kind of put the characters in a certain corner. But this is great. This whole season 3 arc with the ASA, and we had the Resistance as well, and we've got the Markovians. It just gives a lot more layer to the season, giving the actors and the characters a lot more avenues to go for, putting them in different scenarios and positions that they haven't been in before. And I think it's fantastic, and it really measured through storyline, and we don't get too much action when it's unnecessary. We don't have too many fight scenes when it's unnecessary. We are allowing these characters to kind of breathe, and we're seeing different interactions, and we're seeing how these relationships develop. It's very much showing the benefit of having a serialized story arc. We know the CW shows can be very guilty of having these villain of the week, monster of the week, standalone episodes. And there's nothing wrong with standalone episodes, but I think by having a more thematic kind of subject matter throughout, it just gives you more time to develop these characters through, right? And that's what this Markovian ASA occupation storyline has done, and I think it's great. It's just fantastic. The show looks great. The fight sequences and the actions are great. The only criticism I have, and it's one I've had with Black Lightning throughout, is again, we have this tendency where we're getting all this action sequences and fight choreography. What we should be having is really kind of cinematic music to accompany the fighting, but we get this kind of, again, this boombox soundtrack, hip-hop soundtrack, jazz-orientated soundtrack backing up, and to me it just takes the tension away. You should be really gripped into when each character throws a punch, throws a kick, or exhibits a certain superpower. But it's just this kind of click and doing. It's like you're trying to dance to the sequences rather than actually get involved in the visual feel of the action sequences and the fight sequences. And Black Lightning's always done this, and I just wish they would add much more of a cinematic score, a dramatic score, to make the action a lot more tense. Again, Luke Cage did this as well, and I realise, yes, it's very much a black superhero themed show, but you don't have to overcook it. You see, in seasons 1 and 2, I think pushed that narrative too far, whereas this season has been a lot better in giving us a much more of a substantial story, which is focused on the characters and how they can use their abilities. And everybody gets a chance to shine throughout this whole season so far. We see them as well making mistakes and flaws, etc. So it's been a really great season of Black Lightning. It's great to see the series evolve and progress, as all shows should do, and this was a fine installment. Again, I think Black Lightning has handled the post-crisis events the best out of all the other shows so far, and this was another great episode. It's really building the momentum now. I think, what do we have? I think we've got 4 episodes left. I think there's 17 episodes this season, so yeah, let's see what develops further. But this episode itself, the Book of Markovia, chapter 4, Grab the Strap, great episode. This is an episode standout that I'm giving. So those are my thoughts on this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you really liking Black Lightning season 3? Do you think it's a major improvement over the first two, or do you don't think it's as good as the previous 2 seasons? Do you think it is the best CW show so far this year or not? So those are my thoughts. Take care of yourselves for now, and we will see you very soon.